good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome back to Nerd Now. My name is Evan.
I'm Nathanael, and Evan has some food in his mouth, so that made the intro a little bit punchy.
Oh, it did.
No, I'm just joking. Don't be so self-conscious.
Like, no.
Good morning, good evening.
Yeah, I am eating because I'm on the run. I'm on the run from the law.
Yeah, we're recording before the sun has even come up, so that's what we do for you guys. Don't check. Just trust me.
The sun is crowning.
Okay.
You're like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that.
I know I don't like that. So, we are talking about movies, and oh my gosh, what is this?
Again, we're talking about movies again.
We're talking about movies again, as we do on this podcast. We're talking about what makes good movies.
We got to consider
good.
About just just changing this to just like a strictly movie podcast, because I feel like we talk about movies a lot.
We do. I mean, it's you two know more about movies. I know more about games, and it depends. We have to find that crossover sometimes.
Yeah, it's good to have like variety and like mix of both. Like me and David know a lot about movies. I feel like David knows a lot more.
Yeah, I don't know that much about movies. Not really.
But yeah, so I think there's like that, and then we all know a good deal about like anime too.
Yeah,
like we all know like our own different like capacities and like fun facts about like a bunch of different anime that we've watched, and then you're definitely way more into games than I think I am.
Yeah,
because,
and
like
TV. I'm like
TV,
into a lot of TV
because I know about some games, but like you'll tell me like, hey, I'm playing this game like
like the Dubba Dubba of
like,
Masabale.
Oh my gosh, the retro butt cheek. I'm like, what the heck is that?
You've like, never heard of the retro butt cheek?
It's like this.
It's cool, the tits.
It's like this cool. It's like this cool like retro indie like pixel platformer, and it's like you always find those, and I'm just always like, where did you find that? And,
I found it on Alta Vista. I just typed it into the computer.
I found it on Stadia.
Oh gosh, that thing's still a disaster.
We are not funded by Stadia.
Yeah, Stadia's not doing so hot. At all.
I knew it wouldn't.
No, it's just nobody has that much bandwidth, and like it's just not gonna work.
I know. It's like the idea was really good, like in theory, like on paper, but then you're right, yeah, like no one has that much internet.
Yeah, because like for the game to be stable, it has to be like streaming at a certain bandwidth, at a certain gigabits or whatever, and it just doesn't hold up. It just lags and glitches out, and
because of course it does.
Yes, because you should download the game, not stream it. But you can only stream games, and it just doesn't work.
Which is kind of like the idea that PlayStation Now is trying.
Yes, which is why I don't like PlayStation Now.
Yeah,
it doesn't download games right now. Xbox Game Pass downloads the games.
All right, but PlayStation Now doesn't download.
No, it streams them too, which is why it's not that popular.
Yeah. I saw it, and I was kind of like, hey, maybe I'll try it. And then Lotto was just like, is that worth it? And I'm like, probably not.
You have to have really good internet for it to work well.
Yeah, okay, then we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and it uses like gigabytes upon gigabytes every month. Oh, if you use it, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so
that's why download once, play, you're done.
Yeah. I just installed my external hard drive to my PS4. It was surprisingly like a lot easier than I thought.
Yeah,
it was gonna be.
It's not bad.
I plugged it in, and it was just like, do you want to add this to extra storage? I'm like, sure, okay, adding this to extra storage. Okay. Wow. Yeah, exactly.
It's done.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I felt like such a tech whiz. It's like, I'm gonna go work for the Geek Squad.
I am the Geek Squad.
I am the Geek Squad. But yeah, so then right after that, I immediately downloaded The Witcher 3, and man,
yeah,
I forgot how hard of a game that was. It, like, on top of that, like, I started like a new game plus, so it was like,
yeah, you're like level 40 or something.
I'm level 36.
Yeah,
So I'm starting the game again, and everything is like brought up to my level, basically. So the Griffin in the first encounter was stupid, ridiculously hard. I kept dying, and I was in my living room, like in my underwear, furious because I'm thinking like, I don't remember this being so hard. Why is this so freaking hard? And I ended up turning the difficulty down shamelessly. And
no, good for you. We don't got time for hard difficulties.
I don't got time for this. Like, I'm just trying to play through this and like have fun. Like, I don't like. So I turned it down to like just story, and then I died 3 more times.
You suck.
It's because it's not just story. It's because like you said, you're leveled up and everything, so everything is figures differently, like all the damage and everything.
Yeah. So,
the plus side is you get all your equipment and everything, which is cool.
That's true. I think and it's funny because like I'm playing just the story, but I also like I miss like the combat, but at the same time, like I already went through this once. I just want to like relive the story again.
Right. You don't want to like be in a struggle bus the whole time.
No, I don't want to be in a struggle bus.
Just want to have fun. Yeah, my friend, or our friend Justice, he played that game almost on the hardest difficulty.
That guy is insane.
He's crazy.
He does everything like in the hardest difficulty.
And
Bloodborne.
I remember back when the game first came out, he was trying to get me to play it on the hardest difficulty with him, and I was like, I can't do this. Like
Bloodborne, Dark Souls, all those things. He plays like on the hardest difficulty, and he will like that guy's insane. Like I can't. Like, imagine that.
Yeah, he just puts everything on the hardest level, and then he actually beats it with his limited time. And I'm like, how do you do this?
I know. That's crazy, bro. He doesn't play, like, all the time. He works a lot. So the fact that, like, he goes in and he, like, beats these games with, like basically playing them, like, an hour a day, it's, like, insane to me. I don't understand that.
Man. And he, like, initially dies, like, a decent amount, but then he figures it out really fast. And I'm there, like... I'll play the same thing, and I'm just dying and dying and dying and dying, and I'm like, this is no fun. I want to play the story.
It's like I want to play.
What happens next? I guess I'll never know.
I guess I'll never know. Yeah, exactly. So I had a chopstick in my pocket. I don't know where it went.
I thought you said you had a chopstick in your pocket.
No.
Like, that's a weird thing to happen there.
No.
It'll poke your eye out, kid.
Probably fell out of my pocket. It's probably in the car. Oh well.
We'll find it. Today on the Chapstick podcast, on the Chapstick and Chopsticks.
On the chapstick used with chopsticks. Yeah. So back to our main topic because we went way off the rails.
Yes, we did. But do we want it to be our main topic? Who cares? This is ADD. We don't need a topic.
That's true. What is the one thing that you look for in a good movie? If you had to narrow it down to like one thing, what is one thing in a movie that you
probably Uncanny Valley CGI, like really weird looking humanoid characters that make you really uncomfortable. Now I look for good characters.
No, did you understand the question?
I just want the CG to be so bad, but so close to reality. No, I want really good characters. That's my biggest thing in a story. If there's not interesting characters, I'm not that interested.
You don't care?
Not really, no. Because there's no one to care about. Even if they're not, like, morally good characters. Like, just interesting, developed characters. Sometimes the characters don't even have to be like that complex. Sometimes the actor can do a good job and pull the character across.
That's true.
What do you look for?
I look for subtlety, and what I mean by that is, I mean like showing, not telling.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you want to portray to the audience that someone is like overwhelmed or is like struggling with a decision, show me with their actions instead of someone like chiming in from the side going like, oh, they're struggling with decisions and blah blah. It's like okay, cool. They could also just, you know, you could also just leave that up to the actor and like let them portray that and however all that stuff. So I get so bored when movies like just explain the plot to you for the entire movie. That's why I didn't like Inception. Because that movie is just explaining.
It's just exposition.
It's just explaining for like 2 hours, and it's like, like by the end of it, I don't care about any of this because that movie is so like.
I mean,
like,
everything they say is exposition.
Everything is exposition, and like everything, and like that movie is so like nose up in the air. Like it feels like it's so great, and it's like it feels like it's talking down to you the whole time because you're stupid and you couldn't understand all this like nuance and it's like or make a coherent story.
Yeah, I mean the story wasn't that complicated that needed that much explaining.
Yeah, I think that's the annoying part is that like it like itself as a concept is not that no. Confusing, but they just kept explaining it like we were stupid, and then I don't know. And then they changed the rules and stuff changed and like they weren't like what they said they were in the beginning. And then, anyway.
One of my biggest problems with that movie is that I feel like every character is the same character. They're not really characters. They're just like these stoic exposition machines, and they're just like they think every one of them just has, like you said, like has their nose up at everything, and they're just like they're also edgy and cool because they're inside of this dream, and it's just like okay, yeah.
So that's why that's kind of like what I look for in bad movies. Well, not like what I look for in movies, but that's usually what I automatically will like mark off as like a bad movie. Movies that just kind of just info dump and don't really show you anything.
Yeah, when I initially watched Hereditary, I was not a fan, and I think part of it was because it was too subtle. But I
love that movie.
I do love that movie too. But my second watch through, I was like, wow, I was just really stupid the first time. I was like looking for the wrong things. And I think that movie made me feel stupid because the time I was watching it, I wasn't like necessarily paying that much attention.
Yeah.
And that I really love movies that want you to pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love movies that like watching it a second time, you see like little details that you didn't notice before that foreshadow the big climax at the end. Yeah. I love those things. I love those like little like that's the subtlety that I love. And
because with that movie, I remember the second time watching it. Oh, the first time I saw the ending, I was like, that makes absolutely no sense. I don't understand what's happening. Second time, I was like, whoa, this is kind of this all makes sense. This is kind of mind blowing.
Right? Yeah. And like Hereditaries.
That's a whole different movie.
It's like Ted gets possessed by a demon or something.
Which Ted?
Ted from Ted and Ted 2.
I haven't seen that because I haven't seen many movies.
Oh, Ted, they're stupid movies.
No, I know.
But yeah, I think another part that can make movies bad is pacing.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a perfect example of that with Rise of Skywalker. That's like the perfect example of how to make a movie with terrible pacing.
Yeah. By the end of it, you're just exhausted because there's so much going on. And you don't realize how necessary, like, breaks are in movies.
Yeah, or, like, lulls.
Yeah, where I think it's called the coming down action or something, like, where things are being resolved and you have that time to breathe.
Right.
Like, that's not to say that part of the movie isn't interesting. It's just...
You can make those parts interesting because it gives those characters time to reflect on like what just happened, and it gives those characters a chance to grow, and and kind of like prepare themselves for the next part. Whereas Rise of Skywalker, there was none of that. No. You just expected all of the characters to be to just like adapt and change like that with no legitimate time to digest any information that they just got, and then and then go to the climax immediately. It was like basically it was just this rising action the entire movie, and then like it just plummets to an end, and then it's resolved, and it's like that's exhausting. Like you by the time you get to the climax, you're like passed out from altitude exhaustion. Basically. So pacing is important, and you can't just rush through a movie and make, again, it goes back to like info dump, and like that's kind of what happened in that movie too. It was so focused on all the information it wanted to tell you that it didn't give the characters or the audience a time to breathe ever, and you were just supposed to suspend your disbelief and just accept everything that was thrown at you without any questioning or anything like that. And I thought that was absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it felt like I didn't have to earn that information. It was just like, here you go, there's this information, accept it, here's some more information. Oh, you like that information? Let me give me some more information.
Oh, you didn't like that information? Well, here's some more.
I don't care. Yeah, exactly. Just slap you in the head.
Yeah, here's some more. It just like takes like a handful of information and it just smacks you upside the head.
You know that meme with like the water tank that's like spilling out?
Yeah.
The guy's just like, plot, information.
Yeah, exactly.
With the Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like massive plot holes in story. Exposition.
That'll fix it.
Right, yeah.
That'll show them.
More exposition fixes everything.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, that'll show them. It's like, no, you're telling.
Yeah. And it's crazy because a lot of good stories have been coming out of like things other than movie mediums, where like there have been great stories in movies, but in like video games and in television series and also like in anime, there have been great stories that have been like constructed. And on the anime side, they do focus a lot on like exposition, but that's fine because like that's kind of like, an anime thing to do.
I think it's more of
the characters like stand monologue to themselves before they fight. That's a very anime thing to do.
Yeah,
but
and I think that also like part of that is very shonen. Like, when you got a lot of battles going on, a big part of it is like it's Japanese have a different storytelling mindset in a lot of ways. True. In a lot of ways than we do. I mean, there are a lot of anime out there that don't have that much exposition, but it seems like that's a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like different cultures are going to have like certain things they emphasize above others compared to other cultures.
That's true.
But it works and it's interesting.
Yeah. I can still remember with Dragon Ball Z there was the fight on Namek with Goku and Frieza, and there was one episode where Frieza and Goku just remembered and like thought about like the last like 4 episodes and everything that happened, and that's all that episode was.
Just them remembering the last 4
episodes. Yeah, just them like here and here, just staring at each other, remembering everything that just happened.
So was it a recap episode?
Yeah, I guess. And then nothing else happened in the episode.
Oh my gosh.
It was like basically nothing else happened. And that was an episode that like people were like furious about because it was like, we were waiting for the next episode and this is what we get. and so I thought
that's something you don't really get in movie format compared to TV. Like you don't get filler episodes because there's just the movie.
The thing with a lot of TV shows is that they get what you'll get is you get the plot. So there's like the main plot line. Like let's say the overarching plot line through that one season is
burn the witch.
Yeah, burn the witch. They have to get like Joe and Jerry have to get the MacGuffin A to point 2 over here, and that's like the end objective. And so in each episode they reference that main point, but in every episode there's like something else that happens. So there's an overarching like main plot with little like mini plots throughout, and there's some episodes that are more dedicated to the overarching plot. A good example of this is Supernatural. Mm-hmm. So it started like the first season was very much like Monster of the Week,
they kind of made popular. Like they just go off to one little story where they go and like hunt this ghost or something.
Yeah. So in the first season, the overarching plot is they have to find this yellow-eyed demon. That's like the overarching plot. But in each episode, they're not just focused on finding the yellow-eyed demon. They're like, they will reference it, but then at the same time, they're like fighting monsters and ghosts and stuff like that along the way until they get to the final point. So, but yeah, in those shows like that, like you're right, there's not a lot of filler where there's like a pointless episode that doesn't have anything to do with the plot.
It just takes a little longer to get there.
Yes.
And I think that's more of an older TV thing. A lot of newer TV shows now are like one big movie cut up into chunks. So they leave off on cliffhangers, but that are natural, like jumping off points into the next episode. So they do still have that episodic format where they have the end cliffhanger and then the next episode cliffhanger. But they're more coherent. They're more like longer stories instead of like getting caught up in the little details. Mm-hmm. And there's still a lot of TV shows where they do have those Monster of the Week type episodes. Mm-hmm. And that's not necessarily a bad storytelling format. Like it's interesting and it's fun. But I think a lot of the higher quality TV shows now, or the ones that are trying to tell like a more meaningful story in less time while still having like those hour-long episodes.
What we need to do is we need to have a Supernatural podcast when the series has wrapped up. It's on its final season.
15?
Yeah, 15. It's on its final season.
Oh man, I need to watch more of that. I stopped watching years ago.
I was gonna say you can jump in with my wife and I. We've been watching it.
Where are you guys at?
We're in season 5 right now.
I think I stopped around 8.
Okay, you can jump in with us if you want, and then you can.
I would love to have a Supernatural podcast.
When we get through all of it, we can have her on, and she can.
That'd be awesome.
Like talk about it with us. I mean, you guys have heard of her, but you guys have never heard her voice.
Wow, not a single episode.
Nope. Well, there was a couple times where she was there, and like we had her talk a few times, but those episodes like didn't work.
Right.
So.
But those episodes didn't work. Sorry, Laura. Or she was just in the background, like laughing.
She was in the background laughing. I remember we like asked her a question, like held a mic up to her, and she said something. But
like, yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. What has been a movie trope that you've been noticing that's kind of like a trend?
I'm so ready for this.
That you may or may not be super on board with.
So this is a trend that has been in movies as long as I can remember, since the 90s, since I was first alive. The whole like romantic partner, female interest in movies.
Oh, like the romantic interest?
Yeah, it's like, oh look, this female character is introduced and she's hot because of course she is, and here's the main character. Of course they're going to fall in love by the end of the movie. No matter how little development there is, they're going to end up together, and there's going to be a kiss or there's going to be something else going on.
Do you think there's any movies that have done that well, that like you can like justify like the relationship at the end?
I think there definitely are some. I'd have to think a little bit more, but I could. Yeah, there's like so many examples where it's just shoehorned in. A lot of action movies, they're just like, oh look, they're together at the end because of course they are, even though they like talk like once.
What about Jurassic World with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard's character? Because they showed that they had like some like a past already.
That's a more acceptable way of doing it, where they have a history, and even if they don't show it all on screen, like they develop some of it through the dialogue, or if there's something established. A lot of times it's boy meets girl, they know nothing about each other, and by the end of the movie they're in love.
Yeah,
that happens in Transformers, right? The first one.
Well, he meets. I mean, it's more kind of like stalker finds girl, basically.
Yeah,
because he knows of her from high school, but she has never seen him before. Ever. So
yeah, that's one of the more creepy examples. But
yes. And also that's Michael Bay trying to write love and romance into a movie about giant
robots. Yeah, it just
So-
doesn't make sense.
So I don't know if that's the best example.
Yeah, but yeah, I want meaningful relationships between characters. I want actual character development. I don't know why some directors think that that's what audiences want. Maybe that is what audiences in general want, but it just drives me insane.
Yeah.
Because the usually the female character enters and you're like, oh, there's a love interest. You just automatically know, even though the story hasn't told you that. Yeah. That it really irks me.
Yeah. I could probably get on board.
And I feel like every movie doesn't need a romantic interest or a love interest.
No,
Like that's not every story.
I mean, there's some movies that there's like a female character like in it or like already, and like there isn't like a romance like plot line.
Yeah.
So I think there's ways that, like, I absolutely agree. I feel like you can have like a male and a female character and not have them fall in love. Like that's totally fine. Like, and I would agree. I don't think it bothers me as much. I think I like the same thing. Like I see like exactly like you see the like the absurdly attractive female character like enter, and you're immediately like, okay, there's a love interest. Like I've had that thought before too, because of course she is, but I think I don't think it bothers me as much, because I think it's like, well, I mean, you know, whatever, that's fine. I'll just ignore that, and I'll ignore that plot line and try to enjoy the rest of it. I think it doesn't bother me as much when like the actress, or like when the actor and the actor and the actress actually have like good chemistry, and whether or not it feels like earned.
Yeah.
Like if I enjoy their interactions, I feel like then that's like I'm less bothered by it. But if it's like cringy dialogue and there's like no real chemistry, and then they end up together, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really care for that.
That really bothers me. It's just like they're just together because of plot, not because of any developments that happen between them. And that
Yeah. What I really don't like is now I think there is a place for this in like the right movie setting, but stereotypes in like a weird like satire like jokey movie, that's fine, because that's what that movie is. But in like a serious like action movie, don't have like the stereotypical black guy, like, you know, it's like it's so like weirdly out of place and so campy when everything else is so serious. Like you're undermining the tone of your entire movie by doing this. And if it's in like a satire where, you know, you're obviously making fun of like a bunch of different groups of people, fine, whatever. Like that makes sense. That's part of the movie. It could probably be pretty funny. But if you're playing like this really serious tone, and then you have like this one comic relief stereotype character, that's like it's so stupid.
especially when like their whole shtick is them being black. It's like
or
them being Hispanic or
them
whatever.
being Hispanic, Asian, you know, fill in the blank. Like
It's like, oh, it's funny because stereotype.
I was gonna say, it could be the same thing with like a white character too. It's just like that person. Oh, that person is just overly white, and this is like they don't like hot sauce or stuff like, you know, whatever. And it's like they think ketchup is spicy, you know, all that stuff. And it could be the same thing for them. So I think, and then also go. A good example of this was I watched Zombieland Double Tap.
Okay, how was that?
It was good. It was about the same as the first one. It had a couple of like cringy moments, but there was I can't remember her name because that's how forgettable she was, but the new like blonde character,
Right, that nobody cares about.
Yeah, and she's like the stereotype of
Oh my god,
of like blonde valley girl ditz. And for that movie it worked because that's like the kind of movie it was. It wasn't trying to pretend to be like this super serious like thriller zombie survival movie. It was like a joke where like they called like fat incompetent zombies homers. Like they, you know what I mean? Like, so they clearly don't take themselves too seriously.
Right.
But the thing is, if you flip it and if you make that movie super gritty. If you try to throw that character in The Walking Dead, that doesn't work.
No, it just tanks it.
She stands out, and it's obnoxious, and it makes no sense. She's obnoxious in Zombieland Double Tap, don't get me wrong, but she's supposed to be.
It's more like character comedy.
Yes, it's character comedy. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It works when it's character comedy, but it doesn't work when it's like obviously stereotyped. Look at me, I'm the blonde ditz, like that.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
Right. When you're trying to tell like a thoughtful, serious story, there's just like, what is this character doing here? You're not thoughtful at all. You're not a person.
It's like, you don't have thoughts.
You thought.
It's you thought THOUGHT.
GHGHGHT.
with triple G's.
Yeah.
I think that's a bra size.
Is it?
Triple G, I think. But yeah, so
yeah, and I think a big part of that is usually at least I know it's this way with minorities. A lot of times some of the writers don't know like how to write these characters, either because they're not familiar with them or they think that audience are going to resonate more with the character.
I was going to say, you could also just write them like people.
Exactly. I think that's the biggest problem. Like, you don't necessarily need to be...
You don't have to fill like a stereotype quota when you like are writing an Hispanic character. You can just write a character who is Hispanic and then just have them be a person.
Yeah, they don't need to... Their character doesn't need to be built around them liking tacos and having an accent. Like, they can...
Like Speedy Gonzalez.
Yeah, exactly. They can be just a person like that happens to like tacos and have an accent. They don't have to, but...
Yeah,
that's not their character isn't built around that. That's just one of their characteristics.
Yeah, and like they don't have to, and like there doesn't have to be like screen direction in the script. Like, okay, ham up the accent, put more spice on it. Like,
throw a burrito around.
Just wave your burrito around.
And get your Mexican hat and dance around it. I think that'll help a little bit for the audience.
For the audience, just to establish that you are indeed Latino.
We need them to know. But yeah, I think it's the same with writing female characters. Like, people are constantly talking about the strong female character. It's like, you mean a person?
I was gonna say, you could just write a person that has good like morals and is convicted and it just feels really strongly about something, and then they work their way through life and they earn it instead of just the plot giving them everything because they're a strong female character. You're crippling your strong female character by just giving them everything.
Yeah, and it's like there's this idea that if this female character walks out and says, "I am a badass," without showing it, they are one. It's like that's not how it works.
You just have to accept that.
And it goes back to showing and not telling. Like,
Mm-hmm.
show that they're a badass. Don't like...
Yeah, show that they're a badass without,
Because sometimes...
And the thing is, though, that bugs me a little bit because the machismo kind of, like, mystique of, like, being the strong, person, that started with men, obviously. Because that's, like, the, And when you basically throw that stereotype onto a woman, it doesn't work very well because then... They start throwing around the lines of like, "Oh, don't be a girl," all that stuff, and it's like, but they are one.
Yeah,
and so
it's like you don't have to be like an action badass to be a good character.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, oh man, I lost my train of thought.
Well, yeah, it's like a strong character doesn't have to punch people in the face.
No,
they could take blows. They could like be empathetic. Like that isn't
like a good example is Ripley from the first Aliens movie.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that movie?
Yes.
She is like one of the OG like strong female characters because she believes in something. She's like, okay, no, I'm going back to get Newt because that's the right thing to do, and I don't care what you guys say. Like, I'm doing that. And she does it. And the thing is, though, there's like stakes, there's risk. You feel like everyone's in danger. And when she prevails, that is like a triumph. That's good. Like, she earned it. And then,
I mean, she even has vulnerabilities and everything. Right, it's not like you have to be invincible.
Right, I know. That's what really bugs me is that they think, this, not even just strong female character. Like, to have a strong character, they cannot have any flaws.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's not realistic. Like a strong character is someone who has flaws but overcomes them.
Exactly.
Someone who has flaws, but despite of those flaws, decides to do something good. That's what a strong character is. Not someone who has no flaws and never has to face adversity ever and to just get everything. That's
exactly.
Not...
Then it's not an interesting story because they don't have anything to gain because they're already there. They're already perfect.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like Superman.
Yeah, Superman. Yeah, he is a Jerry Stew, but
and then I feel like they just throw in kryptonite constantly, and it's like, well, I guess kryptonite isn't that rare, but yeah, that's why they're always like, here, everyone has kryptonite. Apparently. You get kryptonite, and you get kryptonite.
Oprah is in the DC universe just giving kryptonite to everyone.
But yeah, Superman aside, I just a strong character does not mean they got muscles. And they can punch things in the face.
Yeah, I mean, a good example of like a good character is Batman. Like the polar opposite of Superman, basically. A guy who, I mean, to be fair, like he has a lot of
muscles.
He does have a lot of muscles, but I mean, perfect example is he has a lot of flaws, and he's a very flawed person. But in spite of that, he wants to do good.
Right.
So. Whereas and then he like overcomes them. Whereas Superman, like, he has no flaws, but so it's like
he's kind of like this godlike figure that people look up to, and that's okay. Like, that's not necessarily, you can't have a story with that. It's just
you can have a story about him like trying to overcome like the idea of him being a god or like being seen as one, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like,
I'm sure there's stories out there like that about Superman, but in general the character is not known.
There's stories about that with alternate Earth where like Superman kills Joker and then becomes like the overlord of the planet, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the whole like Injustice 1 and 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That was based off like a comic book and the Justice League show did a thing about that a long time ago too.
Yeah.
So it's like an alternate Earth where Superman like decided, you know what? No, humans are going to keep messing this up. He basically just pulled an Ultron and just like he didn't destroy the Earth, but he like him and the Justice League rule the world basically. And it's like, yeah.
Did they want to go along with it?
What?
They like wanted to go along with it, or he forced them?
The Justice League. I feel like there were some of them that like tried to like resist, but I think he either intimidated or no, not coerced, yeah, or convinced. That's the word I was looking for. Convinced them to like join them. It's like, no, this is the only right way. They won't. I think like Diana and like Batman, I feel like kind of like saw it because they were like, yeah, okay, because like it'll stop people from like hurting each other if we keep the order and all that stuff. And
kind of like an Avengers thing, and with like
with Civil War.
Yeah.
Yes, but like the government wasn't in control of it. It was
right.
it was like if it that would have been like if Captain America was like, no, I'm not gonna sign that, and in fact I'm gonna flip the table and I'm gonna be your boss now. Like that's basically the equivalent.
He's like, I'm gonna be the world's boss.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm your daddy.
I'm your daddy. Yeah. So that's kind of my take on just kind of like this, like the whole strong character trope. Not even just strong female character trope, just like a strong character trope is very overdone, and it's like exhausting to hear people like, oh, like, listen, like this person is a really good character. It's just like, I mean, no. I mean,
yeah, like I would say some of the strongest characters get beat up constantly and are always like in the doldrums, and they're just like, yeah, it's that overcoming. Like even if they don't overcome, they could still be a strong character. Right. Even the failures of characters, like make really interesting, compelling stories.
Yeah. I agree. Oh man, I can't think of a lazier thing than to just kind of be like, okay, so how is this person going to overcome like the bad guy at the end? I don't know. they just do.
They just do.
I feel like that's how a lot of like climaxes are written. It's
Like
just,
conveniences.
yeah, conveniences. It's never through like the tactics or the strategy of the good guys. It's always like, it's just always kind of like a perfect example of this. I thought it was absolutely stupid and ridiculous was the Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
Where we literally just saw Palpatine shooting a Category 10 lightning storm into the air
From his fingertips,
and destroying all of these rebel ships. And then he's shooting lightning at Rey. She blocks it with a single lightsaber, which I'm already like, I guess.
We've seen that happen in the past.
I guess.
But also we didn't see him in the past like destroy a bunch of ships.
Yeah, but I was kind of like, okay, I'll let that slide, whatever. Then she pulls a second lightsaber.
Yeah.
And crosses it, and then like I'm just like, I was just like, this just seemed like they didn't know how to finish this. It just seemed like they didn't know how to finish this.
It was very like video gamey.
It's very video gamey, and I don't even know video gamey. It was just it seemed there's a lot in that movie that just seemed very lazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of plot convenience where something just comes in and it just happens to work out,
anyway.
Not because of any logic.
No. That movie is where logic does not belong.
Yeah, it's where it asks you to suspend all disbelief, like,
Yeah.
and nobody's gonna suspend everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a leak of like the first script written by the original director.
Oh yeah, I saw some of that. It looked like it could have been good.
It was supposed to be. It was originally called Duel of the Fates.
Oh.
Which was the name of the song from episode 1 when Darth Maul shows up.
Yeah, which is an amazing song. So good.
And like Rey was gonna have like a double-sided lightsaber. And
I saw some of that concept art.
Yeah, oh
it looked like it could have been really good.
I know. What a shame.
I know. And so they let JJ. So I think. So from what I read online, when Carrie Fisher passed away, she had a book where she said she wanted JJ to write the movie. Yeah, so that's why he came back.
That's...
Yeah, so it kind of sucks.
Carrie did cocaine. Don't trust Carrie. Sorry.
No, it's fine. She's dead, so. Oh, no. I mean, that's not fine, but it's fine. Rest in peace.
Yeah, rip. But yeah.
Oh, man, how about character deaths in movies?
I feel like the trope of like getting in the last word before you die, even if you have like a ginormous hole in your chest, and it's like you shouldn't be able to breathe.
And they get out just the info that they need to advance the plot before they pass away.
Oh yeah, I know exactly. For once, I just want someone to be like, and like not get to say anything, and it's just like.
I think I don't remember what it was, but I've seen that happen one time, and I think it was a movie. The character like doesn't say anything because they're like in agony, and that makes total sense. Like they're dying. How are they gonna like get this coherent message out? Yeah. It's like, let me get several paragraphs of exposition out
before I die. Your parents were,
and a lot of times it's like, why didn't you tell me this before?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Why do you have to tell me as you're dying?
I know exactly.
Because dark secrets.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's like, yeah, I was gonna take this to my grave, but now that I realize I'm a lot closer to it, I don't want. It's some like, trying to be profound, whatever, and it's just like, dude, you just didn't want to tell them. Like, stop pretending.
Yeah, you just told them because plot. That's a lot of things because plot.
You know what? That's the trope I hate the most. Is just because plot. Like I was watching a show. I was watching Supernatural last night with my wife, and there was a scene that made me kind of go like, all of this is stupid. All of this makes no sense. And there was this angel that like went back in time to like kill these guys' parents. That's like
so not Cass.
Not Cass, but someone else. And this angel had a chance to kill both of the parents like 5 times, and she just like didn't. Like she like continually like pushed people and like walked really slow. It was just like I was watching it and I'm like, okay, he should have been dead there and there and there, and she should have been dead there and there and there and there. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm just like, this, like, why? It's like I'm watching this again and I'm like, this has no tension at all, because like, this angel is doing a really bad job with like killing people, and Lana's like, it's just plot. And I'm like, I hate that, because it's like, I hate that so much. I know that like you have to kind of like, you know, subvert your expectations and kind of let go of realism for what, because you're dealing with like angels and demons and like all this stuff, but
they could do it in a believable way.
They can do it in a more believable way, but it's just, she's just like walking slow Terminator style and vouching for these like force pushes instead of like a knife that she showed that she had like in the previous scene. Yes. So it's like that goes back to Chekhov's gun. Like, you hang up a gun on the wall, you have to use it in the next scene, otherwise it's useless. She never uses that knife that she like flashes later, earlier. Yeah. And it's like they wrote the story, Angel is not going to kill these people, she's going to get to this point. And then the details, they don't matter. Yeah, it's like there's like, because we're going to get to this point. There's a fight scene in this garage. Yeah, let them figure it out. Yeah, it's like, it's too hard to think of the details. Or it's too hard to write down choreography. It doesn't matter. Which, yes, it does. It absolutely does. But yeah, jeez. Okay, oh, and again with character deaths on a little. Basically, characters. Crap! I lost my train of thought. Character deaths. Yeah, character deaths. But when characters don't die like the whole movie, and they're in these impossible situations, which some action movies like they could get away with it, like Indiana Jones or whatever. Right. Like, okay, Mission Impossible. But there's just, at some point, there's like constant situations that they're put in, and you can't escape that many situations without at least like losing an arm or something. Because what happens is it removes all tension. Exactly. Because, you know they're not going to die. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, it's like he scaled this like the side of this really tall building, and then he was dangling from a helicopter, and then he was doing this, he was doing that, and it's just like, and then he got stabbed by a sword, but he's gonna live because he's the main hero. Yeah, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like you get to the end and you're like during the main climax, it's like he's not gonna die. Yeah, because he hasn't died. I think that's a thing a lot of more popular movies do. That's kind of a huge sin for me is fake character deaths and characters being put in these situations where they would have died but they don't die, or you think they're dead but then they come back and it's like, oh well, he didn't die because this, and it's like, you coward, why didn't you kill him off? You coward. Kill him. And it's just like, it'd be much more impactful if they actually died, but they don't kill him because they don't. Yeah. It's like they're scared to make the audience feel. They're scared to subvert expectations in a good way. Yeah. Because it's like they're subverting expectations, and then there's just like doing things because. And it's really frustrating because a lot of times characters will, quotation marks, die in a movie, and I feel nothing because I'm like, oh, they're going to come back. Yeah, I know. That's kind of my thought always. It's just kind of like, I'm like, oh, that sucks. He might come back. And then if they don't, then it's just like, oh, then that was okay. So yeah, it's like, and but the thing is that if they don't come back in that movie, they might come back in another one. Exactly. So it's always like, it kind of happened to me in Endgame where Black Widow died. I was like, nah, I don't feel anything. She didn't die. And then I kept watching the movie, and then by the end of it, I was like, oh crap, she did die. Yeah, and I was like, oh crap, am I supposed to feel something? Was I supposed to feel something? I thought she didn't die. I mean, now she's getting a movie, but it's like it takes place before, so that's. Yeah, but that hurts. That still hurts a little bit. Yeah, once I realized, with Iron Man dying and everything, like, then it kind of like hit with both. But
But it's like other movies' fault that I didn't think she died.
That's true, because there was a lot of like fake outs in like in all the Marvel movies.
Not even necessarily Marvel movies, just movies in general.
Yeah, they just made you jaded to
Exactly.
to, like,
Yeah.
on-screen deaths. And
Yeah.
my wife.
And then you feel dirty when you think one of them died. Some character dies, but they don't. You're like, ugh, I grieved for nothing.
Yeah. And then it's funny because then my wife, she was just like, I learned the rule. It's just like, if I don't see a body, then they're not dead. And it's like, it's a good rule of thumb. It doesn't always pan out, but
Yeah, like Will Byers.
Oh jeez. I can't think of anything else to really talk about when it comes to movies. Can you think of anything that's bugs you about movies?
Don't have soundtracks that are just droning notes.
Droning notes.
Just like no melody in the soundtrack, and like that's fine. Like having soundtracks that are like kind of in the background. And
I do like how a lot of soundtracks have kind of been dipping into like 80s and 90s music.
Mhm.
I do like that. That
Yeah.
is kind of nice, and that does fit in some places, but there's some places where like it doesn't.
sometimes it is a little too on the nose, but
Yeah.
it works a lot, especially in like action movies that are like heavy on comedy or like are kind of like not full of themselves, but they're like poking fun at themselves or like are really confident in the type of movie that they are.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, because I think, like, kind of like what you said, like, just like the drowning note is like, it's very, it can be very overused and used in a way that doesn't really fit. And then when you, like, you can, like, lull your audience to sleep if you don't have, like, a compelling soundtrack. Because like, if it doesn't raise your adrenaline,
Yeah.
you're gonna like pass out. Because like in moments that are like supposed to be tense, if the scene isn't keeping their attention, the music won't either, or like the music has to. And if the music puts them to sleep, then they're gonna miss everything.
Also, I'm just not a fan of non-memorable soundtracks. I like.
You're more into soundtracks, I think, than
Yeah, so I'm like, also part of it has to do with like video game music. Growing up is very melodic. It like has a lot of catchy melodies, and you remember it. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of movies, I'll listen to the soundtrack, and it's just like same. Nothing stands out. There's not even a theme to the movie sometimes. Like you see it with Harry Potter. The first few movies have really memorable themes.
right.
I mean, it's John Williams, but later on
John
they have
Williams
like
is
maybe
great.
a song in the soundtrack that you remember or not
John
at all.
Williams is probably one of the best composers
Yeah.
ever.
He's old now.
Yeah, he is.
He's written a lot of soundtracks.
So.
But yeah, make good movies. Please.
Just for us. Yeah, so that's kind of what we got. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook.
Email at us at nerdingoutpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah.
We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean.
We're everywhere. We're in your closet. Not your closet.
We're herpes.
We'll come out of your closet. No.
We're herpes. We're everywhere. Twice a year.
We're the coronavirus. We're in your houses. We're in every country. No, not every country, but
I love it's like media and news. It's like epidemic. Oh, we're all gonna die, and then it's like Center for Disease Control. Everything's fine.
yeah, basically. I mean, media's got to sell, right?
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's like we're the coronavirus. We're slipping cans of Corona under your pillows.
I'll pour out a Corona for my homies who died from the coronavirus, who are old people. They were on their way out anyway. So, thanks for listening to our podcast. We don't endorse old people dying.
No, we don't. Although I see it a lot. Anyway, goodbye. Yeah.
Just a moment. Now we are rolling.
It's like, yeah, we are.
If you say so.
I recorded my my voice demo
Nice.
So.
Are we saying that on the podcast, or are you just telling me?
It can be both.
It could be both?
It could be both. I can make this like a public announcement now. That's fine.
Very nice.
I found a website. It's called Afford a Voice, and it's where you can have an account and have a voice demo and be hired by people through this like website portal. The pay is like split 50-50 between like the voice actor and the website.
Okay.
So it's like if I get hired through the website, then they take 50, but like I could also get hired outside of it through them.
Right.
So
it's just to get started.
Yeah, it's just to get started. So
yes, yeah. But voice demo, you're thinking of voice acting.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that?
It's weird because I used to tell people like, you know, in like a past life or in another life, like I was a voice actor, but at the same time, it's like but then I thought about it a couple, like at the beginning of this month, and I was like I'm still in my life now. Like it's not like too late for me to do that. Like, and I think for a long time I always thought that it's like an honor that needs to be bestowed on you, and if you don't already do it, then you're just never going to do it. And I kind of just always wrote myself off that way. But I was just like, I mean, the worst that can happen is that I still get to live my life that I already love. So, you know, what do I have to lose?
For sure. I think you could definitely make it. Just be persistent. I think you have a lot of talent compared to a lot of people who do voices and voice acting. So yeah, I think you should go for it like hardcore.
Yeah. I mean,
not just like kind of go for it. I'm not saying you give up everything, but
no. I basically have two kids at home now that need my money. So.
Oh yes. Let's see if I can remember their names.
Asher and Alfred.
I remember them.
Yeah.
That was me saying them.
Yeah. Two cats that my wife and I just adopted on Wednesday.
How old are they?
They're both 8 months.
Oh, they're babies.
They're little furry babbies.